Welcome to the Trumpet of the last few days. I'm Stanley Farrar.
And I'm Robert Farrar.
And I am Joshua Farrar. Return to my proper place in the screen order.
Well, we're not having equipment problems today.
Not yet. Not yet.
Would you believe that all I had to do was reboot that computer and it came right up?
Who would have thought it would take so much leather?
Who'd have thunk it?
Well, I've recently bought a portable greenhouse.
Now I need to buy a portable red house and yellow house too.
The portable blue house that he can put on the other side of the greenhouse that's sandwiched in between next to the yellow house.
Then it would be a purple house.
No. Green and blue makes... no. Yellow and blue makes green. It's blue and red that makes purple.
Yeah.
You'd need a separate purple house to put in between red and blue to make a circle. And you would need an orange house to put in between yellow and red.
And this greenhouse is white.
What a terrible greenhouse. They got the wrong color.
Cultural appropriation.
What are you talking about? No, it's just
greenhouses
showing through.
Greenhouses breaking in on White House territory.
No, don't you understand?
In fact, you could say it's a White House raid.
You can do that because it's white. As long as it's white, you can do anything bad to it.
Unless it's the Capitol building, apparently.
Oh no, that's the exception. Don't touch the sacred grounds.
Well, the way they're printing money, the cost of food here could go through the roof. So I'm trying to be prepared.
Fair enough. Mom always did like gardening anyway.
It was really funny. We were watching a YouTuber talk about whether or not we were going to have hyperinflation. He was like, yeah, we probably will, but we might not.
I don't see any way around hyperinflation when you're printing money faster than you can spend it.
There's only one way around hyperinflation when you're printing money like that.
You burn the rest.
You either, well, not even that. You back it.
Well, yeah, but you'd have to back it, and they're not backing.
Yeah. Speaking of money, though, I've been following the stock market revolution, for lack of a better term, that is being headed up by the slogan that they like these days, that is just, make Wall Street bleed, which is an interesting one. For those who haven't been following it, basically a internet community of casual dabblers in the stock market noticed some illegal trends with a particular stock involving the company GameStop, which has been on the downtrend for years now and was on the verge of going out of business.
That's because it's a badly run company.
It is and was. There's been a couple of changes that some people hope will be a positive sign, but they're too early to know specifically. But the thing about the company specifically is that because it was prospected to go out of business or to go the way of Blockbuster very soon, it was a prime target for stock market short sellers. And the concept of short selling is basically a trick that it's used in order to make money on both sides of the stock market trend, right? So you buy low, sell high. But this concept is you take someone else's shares, sell when it's high, with the promise that you will buy them back on the gamble that it might be lower later. So if it's downtrending, you can just sell, say, okay, it's continuing to downtrend, but I've rebought the stock that you own, and I will just pocket the difference. That's how short selling works. And it's really only something that brokers can do, and it's sketchy and dubious legally in the best of times. But the real problem is that it was the stock market manipulation on GameStop specifically was causing a lot of selling pressure and basically forcing the price of a stock to go significantly down, with the idea of it's insider trading is what it is, and it's highly illegal. And what they were doing is they were selling more stocks than exist for the company, which is also illegal. And with the gamble that if this company goes out of business, then they won't have to rebuy the stocks at a later point to return to the client who previously possessed the stock, therefore getting to pocket the entire difference of something to nothing, making the entire profit rather than just a portion. And this was working well for them until the Redditors, as mentioned previously, started to band together to buy large quantities of GameStop stocks and hold it. And what this caused was a massive upward pressure on the market, causing the GameStop price to skyrocket, which is what they call a short squeeze in this particular case. Because now the people who had sold the stocks that are required to buy them back for the client that previously owned the stocks has to buy them at the significantly higher price that the market is forcing, because the stock individually is now worth a lot more. It went from what I hear from around worth $10 each stock, give or take, to being about 300 to 500 at its peak. So the brokers who were initially trying to short sell lost millions. In fact, at last count, around 70 million. One of them would have already gone bankrupt if they weren't bailed out by 3 other companies working together.
Wow.
And now the stock or the Wall Street bigwigs and their companies are now trying to manipulate the market by using a variety of different tricks and things of significantly legal dubiousness in order to try to force the casual traders out of the market by shutting down the apps that they use to buy and sell stocks, like one that is called Robinhood, which is the center of a controversy right now because of it. And of course, the media is all behind the Wall Street at this point, showing their true colors to the people who were dubious at it in the first place. And it's caused such a big commotion that this is going to be weird, but Ocasio-Cortez, Ted Cruz, and Trump Jr. are all openly up in arms against them publicly at this point. You've got...
That's odd bedfellows.
Yeah, you've got bipartisan war against them.
Well, I know that a member of Congress has said they're going to look into it, which is usually a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because we know how they're usually going to side.
That is true. On a side note, Elon Musk apparently is messing around with the stock market in humorous ways, making the Dogecoin skyrocket.
When it comes down to the insider trading, though, Congress are experts on insider trading.
Yes, they are.
After all, when Biden took and got got elected, Pelosi went out and bought a whole bunch of stocks of Tesla because she knew he was going to sign the executive orders or shutting down the Keystone Pipeline and the leases for drilling on government land. So there, but so we already, and she's also taken and did some other insider trading, but I can't remember what other company. Robert may remember it, but um, so she's making a killing off of the Democrats' corrupt actions in Congress.
Yeah. But insider trading is very normal for Wall Street and Congress in general, so I'm not overly surprised about that.
But it's illegal,
Oh, I know
and
it's
under
illegal.
the rules that
So is what they were doing with the short
and
trading, but
it's
that doesn't
grounds
really
to be
stop
removed.
them.
It's grounds for being removed from office.
But we all know that that's never going to come to be.
No, she'll probably drop dead in the speaker chair.
Yeah. But I have
Oh, a person got arrested recently for threatening Ocasio-Cortez's life. But they didn't act upon it. And as I understand the judgments that came down from the Supreme Court, are just threatening is still within the First Amendment rights.
yeah. It's morally repugnant, but there's nothing illegal against it.
Well, most terroristic threatening laws are still on the books.
Well, terroristic threatening and threatening in general are two different things.
Terroristic threatening is where you threaten harm upon another individual.
Specific harm.
True. True.
Or
Specific.
encourage harm to another. From what I understand from the article, it was not specific. It'd be like somebody going through and saying, "Well, somebody ought to take and kill their Congress." Well, that in and of itself is not terroristic threatening.
Hey, I remember those things, words like that flying around for Bush, Obama, Trump. It's not exactly new.
No, but apparently, if you do it against Ocasio-Cortez, you get arrested. But the Democrats don't believe in free speech anyway.
That's true. This is kind of their modus operandi.
To move us over from one form of corruption over to another. The EU recently did several major contracts with China and with AstraZeneca. Now, there was all kinds of people taking and questioning why on earth is the EU cozying up to China when the rest of the world is on the verge of war with China.
Yeah.
Well, we now know. It has come out that China has been funding Merkel's party in Germany. So
which is the
they
ruling
actually
party in the EU in general.
bought their way into the EU. Yes, it's the ruling party in the EU, and they are funding it. So they've essentially bought the EU.
Although AstraZeneca was actually very adamant that they signed no contract with the EU.
How much of that was true, though?
Well, they're using it as a reason to get out of trouble with the EU. So,
of course, they wouldn't sign a contract. A contract is on paper. That's a paper trail. Additionally, it can be used to
From what
incriminate.
I
There's
understand,
no way they would sign a contract.
what I what I understand it, what they signed was an agreement that the EU would help fund the research, and they would uh, be placed on uh, in the queue for the final product when it was completed.
See, the issue here is that the EU is currently cracking down on AstraZeneca's factories in Europe because they're giving preferential treatment to the British, which it's a British company. The vaccine was developed in Britain. Huh. Funny how that works.
Uh, Not to mention the fact they do have a written contract with Great Britain.
They do. But the head of AstraZeneca said we did not sign a contract with the EU. We merely gave them a commitment that we would try to fulfill. But we're 3 months behind our commitment to Britain.
Mm-hmm. And see, there EU's demanding 2/3 of the stock going to Britain to go to the EU.
Which, let's be honest, they've got no right for. They've got no right to.
Well, they have a more
True.
right to the commitment eventually, but not to
A
do that
private
stuff.
company is not required to sell their product to any client.
Oh, now you're talking a free market system. EU's not a free market system.
That's true.
They're fascists, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're completely command and control. So basically, if you're going to operate in the EU, you're going to do it our way. But where the issue comes in is, okay, they're now locking down imports to Great Britain. So they're saying the factories in the EU cannot uh, export the product to Great Britain because they're barring the export.
Mhm.
I would shut those factories down and destroy the vaccine.
Playing
And
hardball.
oh, they're playing hardball, yeah. And Britain is up in arms over it. So the when they talk about tensions ratcheting up, tensions are really ratcheting up in Europe. If EU keeps playing fast and loose the way they're doing, Britain has taken a strong line against China. EU's taken a strong line in support of China.
Australia is taking a
The
strong line
EU
against China as well.
And New Zealand's not.
Yeah, New Zealand's actually supporting China.
New Zealand is
Which is
their
being they
current
share a
favorite
military. This could get
communist
interesting.
paradise.
But the EU is taking and blocking trade with importation into Britain, and yet they are under contract to import to Great Britain.
Mm-hmm.
They're violating Britain's waters, their sovereign waters, because they've had fishing boats going into those sovereign waters, despite the fact that they're not allowed to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And they
No,
have
they
no
are.
treaty to authorize
I
them.
thought they'd signed the trade deal.
They signed a trade deal, but it doesn't give them the fishing rights. That was one of the things that Britain refused to yield on.
So send in the Royal Navy.
The Royal Navy has been moving in and on their fishing fleet, and France keeps shipping over boatloads of of Muslim refugees is by in open inflatable rafts, which they'll sail the the French Navy up to the edge of the British waters, and then let them out in rubber rafts so they can go on to Great Britain.
Sink them.
Which that agreement no longer applies either, I don't think.
It doesn't know. Um, the the Parliament has already stated they will be captured and returned. So the hostility is really starting to ratchet up over there. And now the EU is forming a peacekeeping force.
Sounds like another European war.
But remember that as all of this is happening, Germany's been going through a lot of civil unrest. And so have
Germany
other
has, yeah.
European.
So has Italy. So has France.
And
in fact, just about any of the countries that have been taking this hard line lockdown everything approach has been getting a lot of civil unrest.
Yeah, that's true.
Kind of interesting what happens when you shut down the economy for a year.
Mm-hmm.
People start going hungry. And once you stop providing bread and circuses, especially the bread,
mm-hmm.
and people get angry real quick.
They part of the conditions and of the agreement that formed the EU would be the EU would never have its own military.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just not going to call it a military.
So it does.
It's like the Japanese self-defense force.
Yeah, it's a
well, actually,
border enforcement.
Japan is by treaty allowed to have a self-defense force. That was part of the agreement.
Yes, but they called it that rather than the Japanese army because they weren't allowed to call it the army.
But they were allowed a self-defense force by treaty.
Yes, but they could have called it just about anything else, whether it be the militia or the National Guard. Any of those would have worked. But they went very obvious that this is a self-defense force in name only. It is their army. Which I don't fault them for. I think
when it comes to
it's important to have one.
Force.
I agree.
But it's still just going by the letter of the law, but not the spirit of it.
That particular treaty is expired anyway, so they could have any kind of military they wanted.
Yes, but only recently.
They're the ones that put it.
Wait, when did it expire? Because it was only
last year.
It was only supposed to expire on the dissolution by both parties. I looked it up.
Well, the European powers and America agreed to take and release them from it.
Oh, but Europe wasn't even involved in the treaty. It was America and Japan.
And see, but when America took and said, "Hey, we encourage you to build your own military,"
it was around the time Trump was still in office. It was sometime last year,
mm-hmm.
and China was starting to get feisty. So it helps to have an ally with an actual army.
Yeah, well, good for them. I thought it needed to be dissolved.
It was long overdue.
The reason why it was dissolved was because of China. Yeah, it was. But that's why Japan is able to take and offer assistance to Taiwan.
Which apparently I found out today that China basically said any attempt of Taiwan's for independence will be met with open warfare.
All right, start the referendum.
They've
Let's
been saying
go.
that for a year.
They have been. They just put another decree out.
Well, they have. The thing about it, they've always been an independent nation.
They have,
They were
yeah.
never part of communist China.
See, I still think that Taiwan needs to hit first. Because if Taiwan hits first and then India surges in Ladakh, get Japan to storm from the north,
And
and
Australia,
get the Koreas to
Okay,
fight
I'm
each
back.
other,
and get Australia to come in with supplies and reinforcements via their navy.
you could do it.
Well,
Yeah,
we already know that Taiwan has the air superiority over China.
It needs to take the initiative. If it can take the initiative, it can start carving out land.
Have you seen the Chinese invasion force mechanized equipment?
no, I
Yes, I
haven't.
have.
They've got a group of double-seater, ultralight um, airplanes, little prop jobs that they say they're going to fly over that stretch with those and bring in their army. And then they've got these armored vehicles that have been known to sink in rivers that they're got massed up to take and come across that strait.
Speaking of communist countries, though, and the fact that we're just shy of 30 minutes in, so we can start pivoting. Have you seen what's going on with the Russian riots in Moscow?
Are they the ones sparked by the arrest of the opposition?
Yes. So the opposition leader in Russia basically made public a huge, like, $1.5 billion bribe from Putin to someone else, and got arrested for it. And then everything kicked off. Massive riots just sweeping across Russia.
I know over 1,000 people got arrested.
Oh, yeah. It was a big affair. Robert may know more about it than I do, but I
Yeah,
was
Russia's.
I don't
briefly
know. I only know
tracking
the
it.
cursory stuff, so I don't know much. Just
All,
that initially, the opposition leader, his name's Navalny, was poisoned by a KGB nerve agent, where he then recovered in Germany, I believe, because he fled the country.
that's already more than I knew.
He returned to the country. I didn't know about the leak. I knew that he was arrested as soon as he returned to the country and had been threatened to be arrested before if he didn't return to the country.
In fact, there is a video of one of the members of the opposition, not even the leader, just giving an interview to someone from the news, the Russian news, there in the middle of the protests back when they were still peaceful. And there was just a squad of riot cops that just broke apart the interview on camera and just arrested the person right there just for giving the interview.
Yeah, Russia's really showing its true colors. For those who say that Russia's not communist anymore, you might want to rethink that.
It never stopped being communist.
At the very least, it never stopped being a dictatorship.
That's for sure. What happens when
It's
that former leader of the KGB takes over?
it's still run by the oligarchs. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's to the point. So Gorbachev earlier last year actually it might have been earlier this year, went on to the BBC because BBC are a bunch of commies, where they interviewed him, and at the very end they were talking about the election, and he said they asked if he was worried about the change of leadership. He said, "I'm not worried about that. It's the Constitution. We're supposed to change our leadership at this point, but some people just aren't ready." And what he basically said was they don't need to change their leadership, even though the law says they need to change their leadership. And remember, Gorbachev was always a party man.
Yeah.
Always. When it comes down to Russia for a short period of time fell into the hands of the mob over there, and then went right back into being under the hands of the communists. Putin has stated that one of his goals is to reestablish the Soviet Union.
Well, I don't know if he'll succeed or not, but with recent events, it'll be significantly harder.
But if Russia collapses, you know what'll happen to the Middle East? It's gonna fall apart.
Dog eat dog.
Yeah.
Because what's preventing Turkey from just invading Iraq is Russia.
Russia's also a major deterrent in a lot of the China versus India and the China versus Mongolia and the China versus Russia.
Well, because Russia doesn't want Mongolia to go to China.
But basically, a huge deterrent force in the eastern section of the world will suddenly be inconsequential.
And things would get really interesting.
Things would get really interesting really quickly.
China would have to actually test its mettle, see if its military is worth its salt.
The power vacuum would be. I don't know if there's something to compare it to other than Rome, really, in regards to the power vacuum collapse.
If Russia went, no, that would be if we went. No, that would be more like if Germany had collapsed when Rome was around.
I think you guys. I, I think you guys overestimate kind of the U.S.'s direct influence on the rest of the world. Yeah, we would have a huge indirect influence, and there would be a power vacuum if we went out, and it would be massive. But it would more affect the local countries on the North America, or the American continents, rather than it would the Eurasian continents.
I once saw a map of the number of countries that exist strictly because a diplomat said it exists. You know who's keeping those countries around? Us.
And the UN,
Well, I
sort
was
of.
fixing. Well, the UN is a communist bloc, but one of the things
Agreed.
that I think I think that you got to take and consider is the fact that a lot of these nations only exist because we've been financially propping them up.
Yeah.
Virtually all of
And
the African
that bubble's
countries
about
are
to
because
pop
we've been propping
regardless of
them up.
whether the US goes under or not. Because we can't afford to keep doing it.
No, we can't. But as of right now, for the last 100 years or so, we've been propping up a vast majority of the world.
Yeah, Pax Americanus needs to stop.
Yeah.
We need to quit propping up other countries and start taking and focusing on our own country. I heard a Brit one time take and go through and state that the only reason why socialism in Europe has even functioned at all is because America keeps propping it up.
Yeah.
Said that that socialism doesn't work anywhere, but the countries that, but so many socialist countries exist because we keep sending them money.
But the money's drying up.
It's liable to become worthless.
Yeah. And the
Investing in
world is
land
about
is
to
not
change
is a
real
good idea.
fast. Because chances are, when one of these bubbles pops, it doesn't matter which one it is. It could be Russia. It could be the EU UK war. It could be the China versus anyone. It could be the Middle East. It could be the United States. If any one of those bubbles pops, the rest are going with it one at a time.
Yeah, a chain reaction.
It'll be World War III.
It's like it has been argued that if China collapsed, that our economy would collapse.
I don't think
Probably
so.
would. We're too dependent on
Well,
them right now.
it depends on how good our leadership is. Because if China collapsed and we instantly started doing tax cuts and rolling back regulations, we'd be fine.
If we could start weaning ourselves off of them now, then we'd be fine.
That's
what Trump was trying to do.
Yeah. If we wait till the bubble pops first, then we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Now, they are stated as our enemies, and that our destruction is their goal. And yet, so many politicians are making money off of them, between the Bidens and McConnell and the governor of the state of Georgia and who knows who else. Besides the Democrats sleeping with Chinese spies. They're so entrenched in the government that they have more power than the Soviet Union had in the United States at their peak. And they had a lot of spies.
The only reason why China states they hate the US, and let's be honest, it's only a statement. They love the US and what they do for them, but they state they hate the US because they need a uniting enemy to keep the country from eating itself alive.
And it's still eating itself alive.
Yeah, but much slower than it would normally.
Yeah.
Well, thing about it is that their current leader is pushing for total isolationism, withdrawal from the rest of the world, take over the foreign and factories, and isolate.
China's leaders pushing for that?
Not Xi.
Yes.
Other leaders are pushing for that. Xi Jinping still wants global domination. But he still wants to crack down on the foreign existence inside his country and then expand out.
Well, he's viewing that he wants to be another Mao. And to do that, he would have to take and shut the country down to establish total control. As long as there's outside influences, he hasn't got full control.
Yeah, but as soon as he does that, his country collapses.
But he'd also start military
the fact
expansion.
that they hurt so much after Australia said, hey, we're not giving you rubber and oil anymore.
Or coal.
Or coal.
Well, China said they wasn't giving them coal. It wasn't going to accept the coal.
Yeah. But the fact that they hurt so much out of that proves that they can't shut down. They no longer know how to function independently.
Well, the American factories are having to rethink things because with them not taking coal from um, Australia, they no longer have the electric power to run the manufacturing that so many of these corporate the corporations rely on them for.
Yeah. So they have to try to find their cheap labor
And
somewhere
in
else.
and India is volunteering.
The problem with dealing with India is that the shipping becomes much more expensive than it would be from China. Because
Not much more.
we have to deal with a whole different load of regulations once you start moving through that many different countries' waters. And of course, if you want to go through the Atlantic side, which arguably would be the shorter method, you then have to deal with the European Union wanting to take its cut. Or you'll have to go too far out of your way by cutting down around Africa.
The more, yeah.
Well, you could, there's that, or you could take and well, from India, you could go into the Black Sea, couldn't you?
No, you cut through the
No,
Suez. You cut through the Suez, go through the Med.
you'd have to go through the Med.
Okay, well, there's that would take and if you're careful, you could stay in international waters, except for when you're going through the Red Sea and the Suez.
Considering how many times I've been through those straits, it's not really possible. If I recall correctly, those straits are tolled heavily.
In that case, it would be better to go around the Horn.
The Horn, you start running into fuel issues.
And Somalia.
Somalia isn't an issue for a reason I explained previously on an earlier episode. If anyone wants to look into the
Well, like I
backlog
said,
for
though,
that.
India still has take it up around the north or across the Pacific.
Then you'd have to go
If
through
you go across the Pacific, then you're dealing with the Chinese trying to blockade your routes. You take it down too far south through down around Australia. Once again, you're running into fuel concerns, inflating your costs.
China only has a green water navy. If you go from India straight into the Indian Ocean and then over to the Pacific, China doesn't have a navy that can do anything about it.
Yes, but at that point,
last
you're
night,
once again incurring the costs that I mentioned from fuel.
listen,
It gets too expensive.
The key issue with shipping from India is the Malacca Strait. Last I had heard, India had secured the Malacca Strait and prevented China from controlling it.
For now. China would fight a war in order to get back control of it if we started trying to ship things in from India.
That's true, but India wants a war with China.
And India's navy, I mean,
But
China's navy isn't that impressive.
that doesn't change the problem of the economic crisis that would happen in the United States, which is what we were discussing.
Yeah. Well, the costs of some things are going to go up, but let's face it, it'd go up anyway because they're printing money like mad.
Yeah, but then it would be both things on top of each other, and the prices would explode to where no one could afford
they're
anything.
Explode anyway. So the point's moot.
The only way around well, okay, there's two ways around and the future hyperinflation, and that would be secession of the red states,
which is the best method,
or dissolution of the the monetary system with the reestablishment of a new currency.
In
which
other
is
words,
the
ending
hard
the
way
Federal
out.
Reserve.
What?
Which is the hard way out.
But it would be better.
But
Didn't
that's the
say
only
it wouldn't be.
yeah,
But actually, the secession would be
but
better
that's
than
the
that,
only two
because the
solutions.
secession would solve the problem of national debt as well.
Yes, it
Only
would.
for the states that secede.
Recreating your currency does not solve that issue, but secession would. The only other way to deal with that
But
issue
see,
is
with
just
the
to say we're not
recreation.
paying, and that would cause a war,
Now, when it comes down
a lot of wars.
to the current currency, being that they're printing it like mad, there's no way to back it up. And without backing up the currency is volatile.
Yeah.
The reestablishment of the currency would have to take place if the red states seceded as well.
Yes, but the difference between the reestablishment of the currency with the red states and the reestablishment of the currency with the nation as a whole, once again, comes down to the fact that one gets rid of the national debt and the other doesn't.
But only for the
Yes.
states that secede.
Yes, only for the states that secede. But I'll be honest, I don't really care about the blue states. They can wallow in their swamps all they want. They've been doing it for all their lives anyway.
Now, I grant you, I gave two options, and I do admit that I lean towards secessionism.
If you liked today's episode, feel free to hit the like button. If you disliked it, feel free to hit the dislike button. It's whichever you choose. Also, feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section below and share this with your friends and your enemies. We don't really care. We just want to be shared. If you say something controversial in the comment section that's nothing new, we'll probably respond in kind.
Actually, I think getting any comments at this point would be rather new.
But as the comments go,
hey, I am not a financial professional, and none of this constitutes as financial advice in regards to the stock market.